All right, everyone, get ready, because today we are taking a deep dive into all things Lamborghini Diablo. You've sent us a ton of great sources on it, like those awesome videos from We Are Curated and Petrolhead Classics and a bunch more, so let's buckle up and take this iconic supercar for a spin through history.
And what a ride it's going to be. The Diablo has a story as wild as its looks. I mean, did you know this legend almost didn't happen the way it was designed?
Right, are you serious? I mean, you see that car and those lines are just burned into your brain. How could they even think about changing it?
Well, the Diablo was the brainchild of Marcello Gondini.
Yeah.
You know, the design genius behind the Miura, the Countach. I mean, the man's a legend.
Right, he practically wrote the book on supercar design.
Yeah, exactly. And Gandini, he envisioned the Diablo with that same DNA, that edgy, futuristic look. But there was one problem. Chrysler.
Chrysler. They owned Lamborghini at the time, right?
Yeah, and they weren't quite on board with Gandini's vision. I think they wanted to, like, I don't know, soften it up a bit, make it more mainstream.
I can't even picture that. A toned-down Diablo just sounds wrong. So what happened? Did Gandini just give in?
No way.
No.
It's Marcello Gandini we're talking about. Rory Anderson actually talks about this in one of his videos. Gandini was not about to let anyone dull his shine. Remember, we're talking about a car that cost Lamborghini a whopping 6 billion lira to develop.
6 billion? Wow, that's a lot of lira.
Yeah, about 4.6 million US dollars back then. A king's ransom, even for a Lamborghini.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, Gandini knew he had something special. He decided to bide his time. And when Chrysler finally sold Lamborghini, you know what he did?
Let me guess. He brought back the Diablo.
He unleashed it. He took his original unfiltered Diablo design and put it on the road in the form of the Cizeta V16T.
Wow, talk about a comeback. That's what I call sticking to your vision. Speaking of sticking to a vision, let's talk about the car itself. I mean, this is a Lamborghini we're talking about, so it had to be fast, right?
Fast. Oh, it was insanely fast.
Give me the numbers. How fast are we talking?
Picture this. A 5.7-liter V12 engine, almost 500 horsepower, capable of hitting over 200 miles per hour. I mean, this thing was a rocket. It was officially the fastest production car in the world when it came out.
Whoa. Yeah, I can just imagine what that felt like. I can practically hear that V12 roar right now.
It was something else.
You know, I had this poster of the Diablo on my wall when I was a kid, just that classic Diablo profile. Man, that thing was pure speed, pure power. I bet you every crazy kid in the 90s had that poster on their wall.
It definitely captured people's imaginations, that's for sure. And remember, this was the era of some other legendary supercars, too. Like, you had the Bugatti EB110 hitting the scene around the same time.
Oh, yeah, the EB110. Now, that was another icon.
Yeah, and Petrolhead Classics, actually, there's a really cool comparison between those two cars.
Man, it's wild to think about those cars going head-to-head back then. But, you know, the Diablo, it wasn't just a flash in the pan. Lamborghini, they kept developing it, kept pushing the limits.
Oh, yeah. They were always refining it. For example, the Diablo's V12 engine. I mean, that thing was like a muscle car engine that just kept getting bigger and stronger. Over the years, Lamborghini actually increased the engine size from 5.7 liters to a full 6 liters.
6 liters?
Yeah. So you're talking about getting close to like 600 horsepower in some of those later models.
Okay, that's getting a little ridiculous. Like, how much power is too much power?
Right. It's amazing they could even fit an engine that big in there. But, you know, all that power, that raw performance, it came with a bit of a price. Those early Diablos, they had a reputation for being a little bit, well...
Yeah, let's talk about that. The Widowmaker, was that reputation deserved?
Well, they were definitely not for the faint of heart. Those early Diablos, especially the rear-wheel drive ones, they definitely required, let's just say, a certain level of skill to handle.
Right, you really had to know what you were doing behind the wheel of one of those.
Exactly. But Lamborghini, to their credit, they were always listening to feedback, always looking to improve, and a big turning point came in 1993 with the Diablo VT.
Well, VT? Okay, so was that just like a fancy name, or was there actually something different about the VT?
Oh, the VT was a game changer. Auto Time Machine actually has a whole segment on it. VT stood for viscous traction.
Viscous traction.
Yeah, which basically meant all-wheel drive.
Ah, okay. So they gave the Diablo all-wheel drive.
And it wasn't just some afterthought, some basic system. It was actually incredibly sophisticated. It could send up to 25% of the engine's power to the front wheels whenever it needed to.
Wow, so it's like they took this wild bull of a car and gave it some grip, finally.
Yeah, it dramatically improved the Diablo's stability and control.
Mm-hmm.
All of a sudden, it became a much more manageable car to drive, even at the limit.
But it still had that edge, right? It didn't lose that Diablo character.
Oh, absolutely. That's what was so great about the VT. It allowed drivers to really push the car, to experience that incredible performance without feeling like they were constantly on the verge of spinning out. It still had that raw, visceral feel.
Yeah. And speaking of pushing the limits, Lamborghini, they also released a ton of special edition Diablos over the years, each one more extreme than the last.
Oh, man. Yeah, the special editions. Don't even get me started on those. Where do we even begin? The SE30, the SV, the GT. There were so many incredible variations.
It's like they took this already amazing car and just kept finding ways to make it even more amazing. And those special editions, don't even get me started. We could do a whole nother deep dive just on those.
Seriously. Each one was like a love letter to performance and design. Like take the SE30, for example.
Well, the SC30.
A street-legal race car. Magnesium intake. Manifolds. The works. It was designed to dominate the track, but you could still, theoretically take it to the grocery store if you wanted to.
Yeah, theoretically. I can imagine showing up to the supermarket in that thing. People would lose their minds. And of course, we can't forget about the SV with that massive rear wing.
So iconic.
I spent so many hours racing that car in Need for Speed Third back in the day. Good times.
And for the hardcore purists out there, there was the SVR.
Ah, the SVR. Now that was a serious machine.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Built for racing through and through. It had a 5-speed sequential gearbox, lightning fast gear changes, no clutch pedal.
Just pure raw speed. I love it. So we've talked about all these amazing Diablos, but were there any that didn't quite make it off the drawing board? Any crazy prototypes that never saw the light of day?
There are. There's one in particular that comes to mind, the GT1 Stradale.
The GT1 Strata. Okay, I've never even heard of that one.
Yeah, sadly it never actually made it past the prototype stage, but just imagine a Diablo built to compete in GT1 racing, but like street legal.
Oh, man. Now that would have been something else.
Right, it would have been legendary.
Okay, so the GT1 Stradale, a legend that never was. What a shame. But hey, even without it, the Diablo had its fair share of surprises. Like, did you know the GT actually used headlights from a Nissan 300ZX?
Yep, that's true.
I mean, who would have thought? A Lamborghini with Nissan parts. Talk about a trip to the parts bin.
You got to do what you got to do, right?
I guess so. But we can't forget about the final evolution of the Diablo. The VT 6.0 and the 6.0 SE.
The swan song.
What made those final versions so special?
Well, they were like the culmination of everything Lamborghini had learned over the years. They were smoother, more powerful, more refined. They really hinted at the direction Lamborghini was headed with their future cars.
It's amazing how they managed to maintain that raw Diablo spirit while still refining it over the years. It really became more than just a car, didn't it? The Diablo.
Absolutely. It was a cultural phenomenon.
Yeah, like in the 90s, you couldn't escape it if you tried. Movies, video games, music videos, the Diablo was everywhere.
It was the ultimate symbol of 90s excess, that over-the-top design.
Yeah.
Like Krista Radar and Rory Anderson both talked about this in their videos. The Diablo was a statement.
Totally. If you wanted to make an entrance arrive in style, that was the car to do it in. And that sound, that V12 roar, pure adrenaline.
Music to my ears. But it's interesting because we've seen the Diablo evolve from this raw, almost dangerous machine to something much more refined, much more civilized. So it makes you wonder, does that change how we see it?
Right. Do we admire those early Diablos even more, knowing how crazy they were to drive?
Yeah.
Or do we prefer the more refined, more capable later models?
It's a tough call, isn't it? I mean, I love them all for different reasons, but I think one thing's for sure. No matter what your preference, you can't deny the impact that Diablo has had.
Absolutely. It pushed the boundaries of what a supercar could be. It left its mark on history.
No doubt about it. Lamborghini Diablo, a true legend.
Couldn't have said it better myself. And on that note, I think it's time to wrap up this incredible deep dive into the Lamborghini Diablo. Thank you so much for sending in all those amazing sources. We are curated petrolhead classics. You guys are the best. This has been an awesome ride. Until next time, keep those engines roaring, everyone.